Hello, BookTube. I wasn't planning on going back to the Brattle Bookshop anytime soon. I was just there a couple of days ago. I got a massive pile of books, 100 pounds that I had to lug back here. I was content. Then, Joe Spivey said that if I didn't do a book haul to match the book haul that he recently did, I was a pusillanimous, pullulating poltroon. And I could hear Aaron Facer laughing in the background. So I did what anybody would do when they're feeling a little rocked. I shirtless Skyped with Randy Ray, the literate Texan. And what did he say? He said that if I didn't go to the Brattle today, well, it probably means you just don't much like to read, darling. So, presented with no support anywhere, I had no choice but to go back to the Brattle Bookshop. And so I did. And I got a ton of books. I got a ton of books. A ton of things that weren't there the last time I went, just a couple of days ago. It's a gigantic pile. Looking at it now, next to me here on the fainting couch, I have no idea how I got it back here. But I did. And I thought we'd go through them together since I was taunted into another Brattle book haul. I don't want to be a pusillanimous poltroon. So let's deal with the mass market paperbacks first. I got a bunch of mass market paperbacks this time around. Like, for instance, I found a battered copy, an old Timescape copy, but I'll take it in any form that I can get it in. A battered copy of The Sword of the Lictor, Book 3, in Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun series that went on. I used to have, I think, 4 of these in a box, and I never see them anymore. Never. And if I remember correctly, they're overpriced online. So I just wait to find them. Sooner or later, these will all turn up at the Brattle. I have now, I believe, the first 3. And these old Timescape paperbacks are really sturdy. I know that it looks like it's been to hell and gone, but this could take 10 more readings. So I was happy to get that. I will add it on until I have all the Gene Wolfe I could possibly want. Okay, I found a Viking Portable Library Edition. These are old anthology editions that Viking did. I don't think they make them anymore, but for a while, a long time actually, they did a whole bunch of these things that really appealed to the back when they were first made, to the new expanded readership of the mass market as a format. These little paperbacks as a format took over the publishing world, and suddenly publishers couldn't wait to trundle as much stuff as possible into this format. In ways that we wouldn't think now, right? In the modern world, the mass market paperback form is reserved for genre stuff. Specifically, I guess, airport genre stuff. Stuff like this is the stuff that you're most likely to find in a mass market paperback, and you will never find a work of history. Never anymore. But I love the old Viking Portable editions. I especially love they had many, many designs. I especially love the cover design that has a full-color picture on the cover and an inset of the author. I have a bunch of those. Don't have as many as I used to have. But I found one today that I knew I didn't have, and this is the Viking Portable Gibbon. See what I mean? You've got the wolf that suckled Romulus and Remus, and then you've got all the header material up here. And this is, I know you see that title, you're automatically going to think, okay, this is excerpts from The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. There is a Viking Portable Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. That is all that. The Viking Portable Gibbon has other stuff too, including his autobiography, which is really entertaining, really good. So definitely it's not redundant. You could definitely have the Viking Portable Gibbon and the Viking Portable Decline and Fall. So I got this. Happy to find it. Looked, of course, when I see one of these things, I always think, did someone who had a liking for them similar to mine die? And maybe there are 20 of these things that are here somewhere, but I didn't see any others. Then we have 2 of these old signet paperbacks of poetry. I, again, used to have this whole set. I really like it. I really like the annotations and whatnot. They're really good, solid little hardcovers. They will not fall apart on you. They did a series of poets, and I found the selected poetry of John Donne in this format, and the selected poetry of Andrew Marvell in this. I found only these 2. I looked for others. I only found these 2. The one of this series that I don't have, I used to have all of these, And the one that I don't have that I really want is the selected poetry of Wordsworth, which is out there somewhere. I will find it somewhere. They also did a very good, I believe it was these people, did a very good volume of Milton that had Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained, and Samson Agonistes. I would love to find that as well. But I found these two, again, when you find two of these things, you look around in case you're missing others. I didn't see any others. I found something for Garbogast. Garbogast is Criminali's event, beloved booktube event for the month of August, where we all read trash. And I have a bunch of trash to read, God knows, on my iPad, on my Kindle Unlimited, also paperbacks here. But I found one that I couldn't pass up. This is by Andrew York. Is this from the 70s? 1968. And it's The Predator. And that's the cover. And the author, Andrew York, whatever his real name is, couldn't possibly have known that it would be a bad idea for you to call your hero a predator in 2024. It was a less fraught time in 1968. Perhaps 37 is a bit young for retirement, but when your only trade is that of professional assassin, and when your enemies have found out who you are, maybe it's time to quit, particularly if your boss, in this case the British government, has decided to fire you. I expect this will be first-rate garbage. I might read it tonight. I don't know. In every Brattle haul, there's at least one book that I'm going to read immediately. I'm going to read them all in very short order. I do not go to get these Brattle book hauls and then toss them on a pile and ignore them for 10 years or 20 years, the way a lot of people do. I go through them. They're all of active interest. I do quite a bit of rereading, but some are usually immediate reads, and this could be one of them. I never quite know. I'm just starting with these things. I want to page my way through all of them, pull out all the ephemera that's in them, mark them, date them, inventory them, think about them, hold them, see what kind of shape they're in, things about them that maybe I didn't notice the first time. So I have a long time to think about them before I decide. Then I found this. This is Rebecca West, who wrote Black Lamb and Grey Falcon, a great book. She also wrote a handful of other great books. But this is one that I swear I have not read this in forever. To the extent that I actually forgot that it was a bit of a spy thriller. It's The Birds Fall Down in this old vintage paperback. How do you like that? Huh? I don't think I've ever seen this in this format. I'm hoping that it holds up well. I'll be as gentle as I can with it. But I really like this author. She wrote Black Lamb and Grey Falcon. She wrote a great book about the Nuremberg trials. And also some fiction that I have liked. I don't think I've read all of her fiction, but some of it that I've read I've liked. And I read this. I must have read this. When did this first come out? God, do I even want to know? 1966. And this Viking paperback edition came out in 1968. And I probably read this in the 70s sometime. I don't think it looked like this when I read it. I think I would remember that. But I'll gladly give it another try. I mean, these things were dirt cheap, and also a couple of you very kindly called in store credit, probably under the knowledge that if you call in store credit, I will give you a Brattle haul out of your generosity. You will get one of these videos. Then I found a nice, I hope, durable paperback. This is, I think, a Bantam paperback, and these very early Bantams were extremely durable, so that you could really get many readings out of them. This is from 1942. This is by Elliot Paul, and this is The Last Time I Saw Paris. And here you have the locale of the book. These are taken from his own experiences. He was a journalist and also served in World War II. And the last time, just like with Birds Fall Down, the last time I read this book was eons ago, and it didn't look like this. And I wouldn't ordinarily have. I don't remember loving it, so I wouldn't ordinarily have grabbed a mass market paperback of it. Maybe I would have sprung for a trade paperback out of curiosity, or it could go on the mental list that I am assembling of the kinds of books that I want to start getting at the library. The actual library. I had all sorts of plans to change my daily routine, and I was going to add a library to that routine. I was just waiting for the interminable, unbelievable heat and humidity to lift. Looks like that has happened. It looks like it's not going to be that way for a long time in Boston. So this is exactly the sort of thing where I would want to read it again, but I would not necessarily even want to have a copy around long enough to do that. I would just want to get one from the library. But those are all the mass market paperbacks. And then we have some trade paperbacks. Like, for instance, I found this thing. This is, it's got dirt ground into the cover. It is just a beater copy. I have had this in many, many formats. I have the ebooks. I've had the hardcovers. I love this trilogy. But right now, I don't have any copies in physical form. I have the e-copies of it. And this is Pax Britannica, the middle volume of James West's great, great trilogy, which is also called Pax Britannica. The Pax Britannica trilogy starts with At Heaven's Command, and then you get Pax Britannica, the pinnacle volume, and then oh god, look at the shape this is in. Good lord. All right, well I'm blanking on it's The Farewell to Trumpets. Okay, so Heaven's Command is the first book, then Pax Britannica, and then Farewell to Trumpets, which is the end of the British Empire on the doorstep of World War II. So Pax Britannica, of course, has Queen Victoria on the cover of these great old, is this hardcoat braced? Yeah, these old hardcoat braced trade paperbacks. They don't hold up well. They've got blocks of illustrations all throughout, so they don't hold up well. I will reinforce this as best I can, and this will be my beater copy. This is my favorite volume in the trilogy. Again, I looked around. I would gladly have taken the other two volumes in this format, even as dirty as they are. I will clean this up. But the third volume is the passing of that whole era, the slow death of the greatest empire the world has ever known. So the third volume has Victoria, yes, very old, but it also has a picture of Winston Churchill, who had to mortgage that greatest empire the world has ever known in order to keep his country alive. And this is wonderful. This is absolutely wonderful. This is the last major work that James Morris wrote before James Morris became Jan Morris. And it's fantastic. It's history exactly as history should be written. Full of anecdote, full of perfectly reconstructed scenes and dialogue. He misses nothing. It's just great. It's exactly how history should be written. I love it. And I don't have any illusions that this copy will last me very long. I mainly got this just because it was dirt cheap, and I might want to, I will certainly want to reread chunks of this, if not the whole thing. And I wanted a beater copy that I wouldn't care if it fell apart on me. Some of these books are going to fall apart on me. Like, for instance, this next one is certainly going to fall apart on me. I've had this before many times. This is a vintage paperback. The most popular version of this is now the New York Review of Books. This is Robert Burton. This is The Anatomy of Melancholy. This is the older trade paperback of this thing. It's just an endless compendium of trivia and notes about the author trying to present a unified world theory of knowledge in his day. I cannot imagine reading this from front to back another time. The first time I read this, I read it from front to back as a book, as a reading experience. And it's mind-boggling when you do that. But it's a perfect book for dipping in and out, chapters here and there. And now I didn't have a physical copy of it because I don't particularly like the New York Review of Books one. Now I do. As far as I know, there is no Penguin Classic of this. I've never seen one, anyway. It was kind of odd. This is kind of a cult classic, especially among the Dude Bros. Then we found something the Dude Bros are never going to experience. Unfortunately, they're never going to experience Rebecca West. They're never going to experience Christina Stead. This is A Little Tea, A Little Chat, which was, I believe, her immediate follow-up to her great book, The Man Who Loved Children. This is about a lech. If I remember correctly, I read this once upon a time, but I didn't read it when it looked like this. I didn't read it in this lineup. I think this is a book about a lech who meets a very strong-willed woman who isn't going to do what his normal conquests do. I'm not sure that I'm remembering that correctly. I'll need to dip into this to get my bearings. Could be that I'm thinking about the novel after this one. But I think that's what this is about. And I love this author. Love everything that she does on the page. So, okay, then we have science fiction. This is Larry Niven. I just recently reread Ringworld by Larry Niven. Loved it. This is something that I haven't read in quite some time. I haven't read this since it originally came out, I'm going to say in the 70s? 1980. This is the Patchwork Girl. And I grabbed it because of this old illustrated paperback. For a little while, the vogue was to heavily illustrate paperbacks by this same artist. All the artwork is done by this same artist, whose name, his pen name is Fernando, just Fernando. And I probably I got this for what, $6? Yeah, $5.95. Probably I got this when it first came out and read it, but I haven't read it since. I have no idea what to expect. I tend to find a soft spot in my heart for these illustrated science fiction novels, so I grabbed it. And this is the last of the trade paperbacks. This is a very interesting thing. I might have passed on this, but then I took a look at it. I took a look inside it and realized, no, you want this. This is a real thing. This is by W.A. Sessions, and it's called Henry Howard, the Poet Earl of Surrey, A Life. And it is a biography of Henry Howard, the son of the Duke of Norfolk in Henry VIII's time, who was a poet, and a groundbreaking poet in the English language. That's what sold me. Those notes on every page. That's what sold me here, is that this is an incredibly scholarly work about Howard, who of course is in the third volume of Hilary Mantel's Cromwell novels, but boy oh boy does he not come off well. He had a very great disdain for the rising new men at Henry's court, foremost of which was Thomas Cromwell himself. So he is, since we're supposed to love Cromwell and be on his side, in those books he is the villain. Even he's far more of a villain, far more simplistic a villain than the Duke of Norfolk himself, who is in all three of those books, and who is someone you can't really end up hating. You can sort of pity him or scorn him, but you can't hate him. Whereas Henry Howard, the Earl of Surrey, you certainly can hate. And he was the subject of a book, England's Proudest Boy or something like that, from probably 15 years ago. I reviewed it for Open Letters. I will try to remember to find that review, clean it up, and put it down in the show notes so that you can look at it if you want. A fascinating figure. He was the last state figure killed by Henry VIII, executed by Henry VIII, for outright treason. The charges weren't trumped up against him at all, and his father shared in that treason and was also arrested with him. And the extra little fillip of cruelty for which the Henrican executions were well known, a little above and beyond cruelty, it was adjudicated that the Duke of Norfolk would be executed after his son, a day after his son, so that he could not only be executed, but live for a little while with the pain of losing his son, and maybe even seeing his son be beheaded. But it didn't end up that way, because the morning that the Duke of Norfolk was attainted, in other words, he was a legal dead man, all of his property would belong to the crown. And the morning that he was to be taken out of the block and executed, which would have had half of London cheering, Henry VIII died. The guy whose signature is on his death warrant died. And the new reign did not want to start with an execution of the highest noble in the land, so the Duke of Norfolk was not executed. His son was. If there'd been a slight delay in paperwork of even a day, his son would not have died. But this is a real biography, a genuine, heavily scholarly biography. That's fantastic. A full-scale Tudor biography that I didn't have before, that's fantastic. Then I got an old bird book, which I love. I am a sucker for these things. When did this come out? 1898. This is Bird World, with that embossed cover, but it's exactly what all of these things are. It's a chapter for every well-known Eastern Coast North American bird. And you get homey stories, you get cute little pictures, you also get snippets of verse that these birds have inspired, and also, if I'm not mistaken, color as well. Yeah, there's a bluebird. I love old bird books like this that just go through the basic well-known types and relate a few anecdotes, tell a few colorful stories, maybe a tiny bit of natural history, a tiny bit of science. I love them. No matter how far back they go, I love them. I have a whole bunch of them, and I go back to them a lot. This is nothing at all. It's 2 seconds worth of reading to do, but I couldn't leave it behind. Then this next one is James Lee Milne, and you've seen this book before on this channel. I don't imagine that you remember. I don't expect you to know 8,000 videos. But you saw this as a trade paperback. And I had already read it. I loved it. I reread it. I loved it. But the paperback did not hold up. And I told myself, if you ever see that as a hardcover, you should grab it as a hardcover. It's something that you definitely want to keep. But there's no sense getting another trade paperback or a mass market paperback because they won't hold up. And I found a hardcover. This is Roman Mornings, where it's essentially a travel guide. He takes you through a handful of famous Roman buildings, monuments, whatnot. It's the writer's writing style that makes a difference. He's just wonderful, wonderful to read. So, and that saves this from being just another dime a dozen, and on our left we have type books. Just delightful stuff. And now I have it. It's not a big book. Now I have it as a hardcover, so it can go in the little book room. Then I found I have a whole wall of collected criticism, my own kind of writing, my own profession, where book critics will often do this. Critics and columnists will often do this. They'll be getting on in years, or they'll have their first heart attack or whatever, and they'll suddenly realize, well, I haven't ever written that great novel that I've been wanting to write all this time, but I have written thousands of pages worth of prose. Surely I could take all of that stuff and make some books out of it. And maybe there would be people who would want to read them. So that has happened a million times, and I collect them. I love them. Oh my God. Collected book reviews, which is what this next thing is. I love them. I go back to those over and over and over again. And the critic in question here is Stanley Edgar Heyman. And I found the critic's credentials. But there are a few books like this. A few collections here. You have the list of authors that he's writing about. All the usual suspects, but some that aren't. Some that would just be a literary retrospective on so-and-so or such and such. I imagine that he wrote the de forma, the pro forma essay on Pepys in here. Probably a reflection on Cervantes or something like that. But it's mostly the novelists in the mid-20th century who were thundering across the landscape. And he would write about them. He's wonderful to read. He was, I hate to say it, he's totally forgotten now. His only claim to fame now is that he was Shirley Jackson's husband. But he's wonderful to read. Just wonderful. And I have never found any of his collected book reviews until today. I think there are 2 other volumes. I looked for them. Once I saw this, I thought, what are the chances? So I looked around. I didn't see any other than this. But this is going to be a joy to go through. I know that seems really weird, but I go through these collections. I love going through them. Especially, not only, but they can be useful. If there's some new biography of somebody or a new reissue of a great work from the mid-20th century that would have been reviewed as a new book by the critics, well, then I go to that wall and look at what those critics said. It's a lot of fun to do. And there's also the camaraderie, long dead, but the camaraderie, because I know what a lot of these people are up against. I know what it's like to produce something readable in the spur of the moment at a crippling word count for almost no money, for an uncomprehending editor, tyrannical line editors. I know what that's like. So I know some of the hoops you have to jump through to get a book like this made. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful experience for me to read. Okay, then I found a box set. I have a sweet spot for box sets. So I couldn't turn this one down. I have read the 2 books in this box set a million times apiece. A million times. I've actually taught from both of them as well. But I never knew there was a box set, so I was happy to grab it. This is The Greeks and the Romans. 2 books on the Greeks and the Romans. It's Kiddo's book on the ancient Greeks and Barrow's book on the ancient Romans. So you have the Parthenon there, and unfortunately you have Cicero here. Honestly, you're between a rock and a hard place when you're trying to visually iconographize ancient Rome, because it's either going to be Cicero or it's going to be Julius Caesar. I'm not happy about either one of those choices, but it couldn't be Roman architecture. You've got architecture here. It'd be nice. But this is the Greeks and the Romans, just in their own box set. That's a lot of fun to me. I'd never seen this before. I love box sets, so I grabbed it. Then this next one is a review copy. We saw this on this channel a long time ago, almost 6 years ago. 6 years ago. I would have got this on this channel. I've been doing mail hauls all that time. I would have got the finished copy down the line, read about it with you. It's been that long that we've been doing this nonsense. But I got rid of it Long since I got rid of I had bound galley pages, I had the review copy, and I also had the finished copy. I got rid of all of them, and I never got the paperback if there was one. But I saw it. I definitely want to grab it. This is Adam Tooze, who's great. He's fantastic. And this is his book, Crashed, which is about a series of financial crashes that he describes in the book as a kind of natural cycle. And this is actually the review copy. It's not mine. I checked. This belonged to somebody else. But I've been thinking about this book a lot. He is a very steep author. He does not slow down for you. It's beautiful. It's what Peter Hitchens refers to as clear mountain air prose. But it's hard. And this is the hardest book, in my opinion, this is the hardest book he ever wrote, because, of course, it's all about the financial world, which I know nothing about. But I have, as I mentioned in an earlier video, I have been grappling with Marx. I have been grappling with Capital. And more than once in my grappling with Capital, I was thinking about this book, this very book. And the Brattle gods paid attention to that and wanted to help me out. So they put this book in front of me at the shop, in the sale lot, on a beautiful morning. Not hot, not humid, not crowded. So I grabbed it. And I will give it another try. Of course, Marx is in here, but I mentioned that the morning at the Brattle was calm and beautiful and it wasn't crowded. This is all true. I had a delightful encounter. The spouse of an ardent watcher of my channel approached me in the sale lot and said, "Are you Steve Donahue?" Of course, I was in my natural environment. Of course, I'm Steve Donahue. And she mentioned that her husband was a big fan of the channel. He wasn't with her at the moment. We chatted. It was really nice to hear. It was really nice to have a little chat like that. I am, after all, a lonely old shut-in, so any kind of company is fine by me. But it also put me in mind to put out a little sympathetic note to all of you girlfriends or boyfriends or spouses or companions of faithful Donahuguenots. I know you're out there in the horrible province of the 21st century. I see you. I know there are people out there who just don't get this weird scropholitic old man on the screen that their significant other is always watching. They just don't, who is this guy? Why is he suddenly a part of our relationship? I've been hearing from those spouses and significant others for 8 years. For 8 years, I've been hearing from those people about how, you're part of our life. The kids, the dog, the cats, they know when your videos are on. He seems always to be watching you when he should be paying attention to me. That made me a little sympathetic. Maybe I'll make a video about that. But I was very happy to find this. I'm going to want it if I ever actually do come close to understanding Marx. I'm going to want to understand it. Then I found another collection. This is a collection of occasional prose. So a lot like the Heyman, only this is not only book reviews. These are columns from all over the world. This was a columnist, not just a book reviewer. And the person in question is Murray Kempton. And I found a big collection of his stuff. I'm very glad that I did. This is Rebellions, Perversities, and Main Events. And the idea behind the cover there is that, much like yours truly, Murray Kempton never learned how to drive a car. But he lived and worked in New York City, so he could be seen all the time on his bike. And so it became just iconographic to draw him or picture him with a bicycle. And he has a very irrepressible, just totally distinctive voice. So these columns, these are going to be him writing about the politics of the day, the silly cultural stuff of the day, but also a lot. I think there is a whole section in here on book reviews. Is that right? The genius of Mussolini, the scribbler's choice, stupidity does not discriminate, the Zionist tragedy, Ronald Reagan, the performer's art, the decline and fall of the Democratic Party. Well, maybe this isn't about book reviews, but it hardly matters to me. This is going to be a joy. I don't think I've ever had this volume. I think I would remember it. So it's going to be a joy. And it's blurbed on the back. Joan Didion is the first blurb. There should be a daily readings of this book in every newsroom in America. Close study of it should supplant enrollment in graduate schools of journalism. Murray Kempton is the best we have and better than we deserve. And then Elizabeth Hardwick, the great Elizabeth Hardwick, also has a blurb on the back. Enlightened, intelligent, illuminating, possessed of a vast amount of American experience, Murray Kempton is a pleasure to read and an instruction in the art of prose. This is a brilliant book. And then we have David Remnick, who's also blurbed on the back. Murray Kempton is the greatest of all living newspapermen, and his beat stretches from the Vatican to the social clubs of the mob. He is a moralist who does not preach, an artist who reports. Finally, with this book, the world west of the Hudson River can read the best since Mencken. And this book was a long time coming. It was very, very hard to pull this book out of Murray Kempton. I am not one to talk. I am not casting aspersions on that exact point. But the person he was nagged a lot about making a book like this. He was nagged a lot. He himself said that it was tempting the Grim Reaper to do such a thing. It was a concession, and you don't want to make a concession like that. But the person who prompted him the most was William F. Buckley. I believe this book is dedicated to Buckley. Is that right? Yes, for William F. Buckley, a genius at friendships of the kind that passes all understanding. That finally happened. This came out just a few years before Kempton died. So now I have it. I'm very, very tempted to do a deep dive into this thing. Very tempted. I've read lots of what's in here, I'm sure. And then we can finish up with this Brattle book haul. There's a lot of books. We can finish up this Brattle book haul with Robin Lane Fox, who I love. And this is his book, Pagans and Christians. I've had this thing a million times, but I saw it today. A big hardcover that'll take as much annotation as I can do, and I saw it today and realized, you don't have that, and you haven't read it in a long time. And it's great. It's about the pagan world and the flourishing of its full strength, which would be this, and also then its supplanting by the Christian world, especially in the early stages. The long section of this book on very early Christianity is the best part of the book. So thanks to your generosity, thanks to the generosity of people calling in store credit, it was free. All I had to do was lug it back here. So I grabbed it. This will definitely repay a reread. I just last year read a book about early Christianity, and the whole time that I was reading it, I was thinking, why are you reading this? You could be rereading Robin Lane Fox, who's so much better on the subject. So now I have the book. So there we go. Dare we try a Steve Pyramid? We have Pagans and Christians by Robin Lane Fox. We have Murray Kempton, a big collection of Murray Kempton. What fun. We have Crashed by Adam Tooze, about how the markets that Marx is describing almost as though they were natural functions periodically crash, and why that is, and what the nature of it is. We have The Critic's Credentials by Stanley Heyman. We have The Ancient World of the Romans and the Greeks. The 2-volume set there. So I'll never need to futz around with delicate little mass market paperbacks again. We have Roman Mornings by James Lee Milne. Fantastic. Bird World. Just an illustrated old bird book. Henry Howard, the poet Earl of Surrey, which I ordinarily would not have got such a thing, but it looks so detailed. It's going to be so much fun to read. The Patchwork Girl by Larry Niven. A Little Tea, A Little Chat. Anatomy of Melancholy in the old trade paperback. Pax Britannica in this working volume. I will do what I can to make it last to read. The problem with these old Harcourt Brace Jovanovic things is that they just crack. They just crack down the middle when you're reading them. And then mass market paperbacks. The Last Time I Saw Paris. The Birds Fall Down. The Predator for Garb August. The Selected Poetry of Andrew Marvell. The Selected Poetry of John Donne. The Portable Gibbon. And finally, The Sword of the Lictor, the one thing that I know for sure will not be on the reading pile tonight in the little book room. I'm not going to pick out the third book in a series for a reading tonight. But there you go, a great big Brattle book haul that I was taunted into by the bad boys of BookTube. It won't leave me alone. They realize what a feckless, peer pressure-driven little read I am, and so they pile on. But I hope they're satisfied. This was a lot of fun, but I think we've got rain in the forecast for the next few days, so I don't think I'll be doing another Brattle book haul until next week. We'll see. Famous last words. But that's it for now. I'm going to have a lot of fun probing these things and going over them. I noticed that it's not just the Pax Britannica. Quite a few of the books in this pile are a little bit on the dirty side. They've got a little patina of dust on them and whatnot. So, perfect opportunity to just go through the whole pile, either with a paper towel lightly soaked in warm water, if you're very gentle, or an alcohol wipe. Again, very gentle. You'd be amazed how much crud you can get off a book if you're patient and gentle with it. I might do that. I might clean up some of these, but what fun. What amazing fun. I had a great time, too. Although, if you see me at the Brattle Bookshop, definitely approach me. Definitely come up and say hi. We'll take a picture. We'll talk. Definitely do that. I'm not a big YouTube influencer who's going to have you shot on sight by his lawyer. I want to meet you. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.